It's a question that I get asked a lot as somebody who studied food science and food technology and innovation. Can you tell me what foods are good for me and what foods are not? So today I want to share 5 tips that I use to help me and my family and my loved ones eat healthier. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a food scientist, and this is my channel Made to Sustain, where my goal is to help you make food choices that are made to sustain you, your health, and the planet. And I just also want to preface that this is just general guidance based on my knowledge of the food industry. But if you have a specific medical condition, make sure you talk to your own healthcare providers, because this is just a very general approach to eating healthier. So as a food scientist, one of the things that I think are really important to do is eat with the seasons. And what does this mean exactly? That means to eat foods that are like in season today, right? Right now I'm recording this, it's springtime, and things that are in season are things like peas, mushrooms, sorrels, parsnips, garlic, all things that are starting to come up in the springtime. And so those are the ingredients that I'm going to try to cook with regularly, because they're most likely coming from a more local source than, things like watermelons and berries that are not ready for the season yet. I have a seasonal produce guide on my website that I'll link down below that you should definitely check out if you're interested in eating more this way. But if you're looking for just a good place to start, one of the best recommendations I can tell you is to look for the country of origin. And this is a really easy way to do this. I get told often, well, how come I can go to the grocery store in February and there will be blueberries there? That's because they're coming from another part of the world where they're grown in season, right? And then shipped all the way from there to here. So a lot of times in February, you'll see berries from Peru. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you're not going to be eating them at a time when they taste the best, where they have the highest nutrient content, because they're going to be ripening over the distance that it's transported rather than ripening on the vine where it's able to suck up all of those nutrients. So that's just something that I personally like to do, is always check the country of origin to see where my food comes from. I'm always going to try to eat more locally if possible, because to me, I want to eat with the seasons rather than relying on other countries for food. And I have a whole video on food miles if you want to learn a little bit more about how do those food miles impact food sustainability. But if you're trying to eat a more sustainable diet, one of the best things that you can do is buy frozen, buy canned. People tend to discount frozen food as cheap and not good for you. But the truth of the matter is that fruits like blueberries, like corn, like canned tomatoes, they're all picked at peak ripeness and then processed right away so that they're preserved, for a couple years to come. And that's a great way to reduce the food waste and make sure that we're eating all of it within a reasonable amount of time, and making sure that we're able to get food all year round. So it's really not a bad thing to eat foods that are frozen like that. So anyways, always try to eat with the seasons if you can. My next way I try to eat really healthy as somebody who studied food sciences, I always like to think of, is this something I can make myself, right? So one of my favorite examples is whipped butter, right? Or whipped cottage cheese. Is it really that hard to do it yourself? Or is this more something that you pay for the convenience, right? This example, again, this is definitely something I can make myself, but do I have the time to make it? Depends on the week. It's great for a recipe inspiration if you're somebody who likes to do cooking. Not everybody likes to do cooking, and that's something that I always have to remind myself as somebody that studied food, and really my whole life revolves around food. So just something to think about. Again, is it something I can make myself? And if it is something that I can make myself, I will. So another example that I like to use is vegetable stock, right? That's something I can easily make myself, and I often end up making myself. It uses up my food scraps. It's really cheap to make it. You're literally using what would have gone to waste for free, right? And that's saving you $2-3 a container in the long run, right? If you're able to do something and make it yourself, you'll definitely save money doing that way. I think the thing to remember is you're paying for that convenience, that added convenience to have it there. Then as a food scientist, as somebody who knows the food industry really well in and out, my best advice that I can give you is to try to eat food in the least processed form possible. I always like to tell people to choose the least processed food as possible when it's convenient, right? So again, things like processing in there, that's going to remove that additional things like fiber, protein, and vitamins and minerals that are really important to you. So my best advice that I can give if you're trying to eat healthier is, as much as you can when it's convenient to you, try to eat as much whole food as you possibly can. And Another thing to add is, the more processed a food is, the more energy that has to go into making that food more processed. And that means a higher carbon footprint on the product. So that's just, I know it seems like an oversight, but when we're talking about food and sustainability and creating a sustainable food system, one that's made to sustain you, your health, and the planet, eating foods that are less processed are going to be better for you in the long run and better for the planet in the long run. I think there's a big gap between understanding the intersection of nutrition, food science, and just overall general health and well-being. These are just ways that I myself try to eat healthier and try to maintain a healthy diet as somebody who works in the food industry.
So some ways to eat healthier are to make sure you eat with the seasons, check the country of origin, buy fresh, frozen, or canned food, see if you can make it yourself, and always eat the least processed form of food possible.
I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, I know this is a little bit of a loaded topic. It's also a very sensitive topic. Don't forget to look in the comments down below for all of the links and resources that I referenced. Once again, I'm Kelly and this is Made to Sustain. Thanks so much for coming around and we'll see you soon. Bye.